Sometime the forest swallowed sound so completely that even footsteps felt like intruders. And that was exactly the moment Ava Reynolds realized she and her daughter were no longer alone in the quiet heart of Pinewood Forest. The van appeared between the trees as though the earth had pushed it up to be found. Its rust-eaten frame slouched into the soil, doors hanging loose, offering a glimpse of the forgotten world inside. Cold air drifted from its dark interior, tinged with mildew, age, and secrets. Ava's breath stalled in her chest as she stepped closer, trying to shield Lily with one arm while her heart hammered like a warning drum. In that instant, the forest didn't feel peaceful. It felt watchful, ancient, holding its breath as if aware of the truth waiting inside that van. And as Ava pushed the door open, sunlight slashed across blankets, drawings taped to metal walls, and a little backpack with a name stitched on the tag, Sophie Chen. She didn't know it yet, but she had just stepped into a story buried 10 years deep in silence, a story someone had prayed would never surface again. Inside the van, time seemed layered into the cramped shadows. Children's drawings clung to the walls like little ghosts of innocence, their cheerful colors disturbingly out of place in that stale, shuttered space. Ava rummaged through the belongings, tiny clothes, faded blankets, half-rotted supplies, each object whispering fragments of a life lived in hiding. But it wasn't until she found the hidden compartment beneath the seat that her pulse turned to ice. A cardboard box, sealed, preserved unnaturally well amid the decay. She sliced it open, expecting clutter, maybe old camping gear. Instead, she stared into a catalog of obsession, missing person flyers, newspaper clippings, surveillance photographs of a young woman named Melissa Wang. Her smile repeated across dozens of pages, taken from angles that made Ava's skin crawl. This wasn't a forgotten campsite. This was evidence. Evidence someone had meant to bury forever. As Lily tugged at her sleeve, asking if they could leave, Ava held the journal that trembled in her hands. The journal Melissa had written before she vanished from Millbrook a decade earlier. Sometime later, after they fled the woods and the safety of her car wrapped around them like armor, Ava read Melissa's final days through shaking fingers. The journal entries started with normal life, friends, work, dreams of going back to school, but quickly spiraled into fear. Melissa documented the man who followed her, the one who entered her home unnoticed, who left gifts, who watched her through cameras hidden in her smoke detector. She begged the journal to remember her if she disappeared. She wrote about Sophie, the child she babysat, terrified the man had taken an interest in her too. The last entry described Melissa deciding to hide in the very van Ava had found, believing she'd survive there long enough to decide her next move. But the final lines ended abruptly, unfinished. As Ava closed the journal, the weight of Melissa's terror settled into her bones. She dialed 911 with trembling hands, unaware that the moment she pressed call, the quiet life she'd built in Millbrook was about to detonate into the center of a forgotten investigation. The arrival of law enforcement turned Pinewood Forest into a quiet storm of flashing lights, crime scene tape, and hushed urgency. Officers moved with precision, their expressions shifting from curiosity to grim determination as Ava led them to the van. Detective Sarah H. Ricks emerged through the trees, a woman worn by years of unanswered questions. Seeing Melissa's journal in the evidence bag made her jaw tighten with a pain she didn't hide. She had led the original investigation, chasing dead ends until the case collapsed under silence and lack of proof. But now, with new eyes and new technology, the old puzzle pieces began clicking, not loosely but with terrible precision. It was Melissa's own notes that pointed investigators toward a storage unit purchased under a false name by a respected businessman, Derek Patterson, the man the town trusted, the man Melissa feared, the man the original investigation had looked at, then dismissed. When police entered the storage unit and uncovered Melissa's belongings, her missing laptop, her clothing, and DNA evidence hidden but not fully erased, Millbrook changed forever. And Ava, standing with Lily held close, felt the forest exhale at last. Sometime during the weeks that followed, the discovery surged through the town like a shockwave. Reporters hounded Ava, neighbors whispered, and strangers approached her at the diner where she worked. She ignored them all, focusing instead on Lily and the investigation progressing behind closed doors. When Patterson was arrested, escorted from his pristine home in handcuffs, the truth shattered Millbrook's image of him. He had stalked Melissa for months, fueled by obsession. He had tracked her to the van, abducted her and held her captive. Though her body was never found, the evidence was irrefutable. During the trial, Ava watched Melissa's parents clutch each other while listening to every horrifying detail. She watched Sophie, now 14, testify with trembling hands about the memories she barely had but the grief she carried nonetheless. And each time their eyes met, Ava felt the invisible thread that bound them all, a truth rediscovered because she chose to step toward a mystery rather than retreat. The guilty verdict arrived like a thunderclap, decisive, final, echoing through the silent spaces where Melissa's voice had once been lost. Life slowly stitched itself back together in the months after the trial. Ava returned to her routines, though the world around her felt subtly different, sharper, heavier, more fragile. Melissa's family formed a foundation in her name, fighting for missing persons, advocating for stalking victims, and they invited Ava to join their board. She accepted, humbled by the honor and haunted by the thought of how easily her discovery might never have happened. Returning to Pinewood Forest a year later, Ava and Lily found a memorial at the spot where the van once sat. Flowers, photos, handwritten notes, and a wooden cross carved with Melissa's name. Lily placed her drawing of a sunrise at its base. Ava whispered a promise she knew Melissa would hear wherever she rested. And as they walked away, the forest seemed different, not menacing, not sorrowful, just honest, holding both tragedy and healing in the same breath. Sometime years later, the world moved forward, but the story never lost its echo. The Foundation solved more cold cases. Patterson's appeals failed. Lily grew older, wiser, shaped quietly by the day she pointed at a van hidden in the trees. Ava found strength she never knew she carried, speaking at events, guiding families through grief, reminding communities to trust victims before it's too late. Melissa's journal was published, her words educating thousands about the darkness she tried to outrun. Through every effort, another truth became clear. Evil survives when ignored, but collapses when even one person pays attention. Ava learned that power didn't require wealth or influence. Sometimes it lived in ordinary people making extraordinary choices simply because something inside them refused to stay silent. Sometime on the 10th anniversary of their discovery, Ava and Lily returned to the memorial for the final time before moving to a new city. The forest welcomed them with quiet dignity, the memorial grown with years of care. A plaque beneath the cross read, "The truth, though buried, will always rise." Lily, now nearly grown, touched the plaque with steady hands. Ava felt the weight of all they'd lived through, the trial, the healing, the years of advocacy, and understood that none of it would ever truly leave them. Together they stood, remembering the woman they never met but came to know through fear-trembled pages and the echoes left in a van swallowed by time. When they finally walked away, Ava felt not sorrow but gratitude. Melissa's voice had been heard, her truth finally unburied, her story forever carried. And now, if this story has reached you, if you felt the weight of its truth, the strength of its courage, then I invite you to keep its light alive. Tap the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories that refuse to stay silent. Before you go, I want to know something personal. Where are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now?